We're going to continue with the previous discussion that we had about autism, because a lot of this subject is overlooked in the Muslim community. And in the first part of this series or this workshop, we discussed about what is autism. And we also did the statistics of how many people have autism in America. We talked about, is autism curable or not? Is it like a disease or not? We also talked about how autistic people are wired differently than neurotypicals, as they call them. Neurotypicals is the average way that the majority of people are wired, let's say. Whereas autism, they think of things in a different way, and their brain works in a different way. They are different, but not less. That's the thing we have to keep in mind, because a lot of people judge others because they're not like them, that they're less than them. And this is an incorrect way to think about things. We also talked about the early detection signs of autism. Most of the time, children are diagnosed by the age of 3 if the parents are taking active role in noticing things. A lot of times people are busy and they work, and the mother works and the father works, and they don't have time. They don't spend a lot of time with the children. So a lot of times the grandparents are the ones who notice, or other people start to notice that they're not meeting their milestones of their age, their correct age. We discussed a lot about this in detail in the first part. We also spoke about the negative behaviors that are associated with autism, such as self-harming, meltdowns, aggression towards others, running away, just a few of them. And we also talked about the positive behaviors associated with autism, which were, some of them were photographic memory, attention to detail. They may be a genius in some subjects, but might lack in other subjects. Or they may be really good with certain things, such as math equations or history or different fields, specific fields. They might excel rapidly in that field, and they might lack in another field. So they might be a genius in one area and lack in another area. But we have to learn how to teach them and learn how they think and how they work and how they process things in order to better teach them, because kids are different, people are different. You can't teach everyone the same way. Not everyone learns the same way. So we have to figure out how to teach them and how they can learn to be the most productive, because you don't want to keep trying to teach them in a way that they're not learning. So you have to find out how to tap into their learning process. And this is why you often see the symbol associated with autism as the puzzle piece, because it's a puzzle and you have to figure out each person. It's a common phrase that says, if you met a person with autism, then you just met one person with autism. You can't put all of them under the same blanket statement that they are all alike, because everyone is unique and everyone is different and everyone has their own strengths and everyone has their own challenges. Maybe they might share some common denominator of some things that they have in common, but the majority of the time everyone is different, everyone is unique. So this is what we spoke about in the first part of this, and I would suggest that you listen to this first part, the one that was previously recorded, before you move on to the one that we're going into now, which is part 2. And part 2 was dealing with the diagnosis and how to handle it as a parent, which is a very difficult thing to handle, because when a young couple gets married and they have hopes and plans and dreams for the future, they have a lot of these things in mind. They have a lot of ambitions, and they're very ambitious. They want to travel the world, and they want to find a place they can call home, raise a family, etc. All of these things. And then once they have a child, their world is turned upside down. In a good way, though. And what I mean by this is they're happy that they have a child and that everything in life is now about their little bundle of joy and their child. Everything revolves around the child now. So they stop thinking about themselves and they just plan and daydream about their children and what their child will be, when they grow up, and what type of things they want to teach them and things like this. But after a few years, the parents might notice that the child's not reaching their milestones as the other kids their age have met. And also, they still say, oh, maybe, I'm going to be optimistic. I'll be optimistic, and then hopefully they'll catch up and meet their age requirements, their milestones that the other kids have met. And as time goes by, they start to notice that their child might not respond to his name or her name when they're being called. The child might be reclusive or stay to themselves. They might repeat the same things, same type of actions over and over and over again, like flapping their hands, for instance, like this, or spinning in circles over and over again, lining all their toys up in a row, not playing with them in the normal way, the typical way that a child would play with their toys. Maybe they flip their car upside down and just spin the wheel over and over and over again instead of playing imaginary play with the race car. And the child can't understand things when you're asking them to do something, or they might not speak, or they try to speak but they have a lot of trouble speaking and they have trouble getting the words out. These are all signs that a child with autism would have. They may have some of them, they may have all of them. They may have more of them that we didn't even mention. And, after the long wait to get to the child specialist, because this can take years to get to the child specialist. Sometimes the waiting list is 1 year or 2 years to get to the specialist. And then after all of that, they find out that their child, who is their only concern in the whole entire world, has a condition that doesn't allow them to think and process information like the rest of the kids in the world. And he thinks differently, and can't be taught by the traditional way and style of parenting that most people are familiar with. Because we can't teach the kids with autism in the same way that we teach the neurotypical kids. Everyone doesn't learn the same. And this can feel like you've been hit with a ton of bricks. And to say that is an understatement. It can be overwhelming, just to say the least. Because all the things you wanted for your child, they seem to be very far out of reach now. And you start to think about your child and you have trouble just getting him to communicate with you. And you understand that when you tell them that you love them and you hope to hear that back from them, but maybe you don't hear it and they don't express it, and it's very hard to deal with. And you wonder sometimes, do they know how you feel about them? Do they understand how you feel? And yet worst of all is your child is going through so many difficulties and he's unable to express himself and tell you how he feels. And he's unable to express himself through words, and you can't do anything about it. You want to be there for him and help him, but you don't know what his needs are, and you don't know what is going on, and you just feel hopeless with nothing left to do. All you can do is just love your child and be there for him, but it's very hard to see them going through things and they can't express their emotions and they can't get the words out, and then you don't know how to help them. It can leave one feeling very hopeless and even depressed. So what do we do about this in this situation? What can we do? Our child can't tell us what they need. We don't really know much about the autism because most people don't look into those type of things unless they're affected by it. So, for example, like me, I wanted to research and read, and I bought tons of books and audio books and physical books, and I was always studying and reading and talking to therapists. And the key to the thing is early intervention. You have to get your child help at an early age so that they can work with them, these people that specialize in this field, and they will show you what to do and how to do things and teach you how to reach your child. And they went to school for these things and they know. And I would sit down and not just let them do their thing, but I would sit down and ask them so many questions about what to do, what's going on, how should I do this. You have to be very active, even more so than with a typical child. You have to be very involved in their life and help them and learn how to teach them, because other people won't understand your child like you will. The therapist will, but the general public, they won't understand, and you have to advocate for your child. When they go to school, the teachers might not understand them, the principal might not understand them. You have to explain to them how to deal with your child in the best way. So we have an action plan, and one of these things that we should do is to educate ourselves about autism. And not just yourself, but your family and those around you, because they're going to be interacting with your children, and they need to understand what is going on with your child and how to deal with autistic people in general. Another action plan is to learn how to reach and engage your child so that you can teach him in the way that he learns best. We have to figure out how to reach our children in a way that they will grasp what we're saying, and that they can progress and continue to move forward and meet the milestones that they should, and to even excel and go beyond that. So what can you do as a family? What you can do as a family member? This is a question that comes up. What can a family member do or a friend do to help the parents who receive this autism diagnosis of their child? You're a friend or a family member, and you just found out that someone, close to you, they have a child that has been diagnosed with autism. What should you do? So for a person who's going through this, a parent who's going through this struggle, that they really need a strong support system and someone to turn to. And first and foremost, they must rely on God, and then seek help from family and friends and community members. They may and they will encounter all sorts of responses when they present their struggle to people around them. They're going to come in contact with a lot of different people and a lot of different responses. Some will say, oh, it's those vaccines that you gave your child. You shouldn't have gave your vaccines. You shouldn't have given your child vaccines. You basically, in this situation, this doesn't help the parents at all, because it makes them feel as if they're the ones who gave their child autism. And this can cause one to start blaming themselves and go into a very dark place and a dark world of depression. After all, if a parent got their child vaccinated, they were only doing what they thought was best for their child and trying to protect their child from harmful diseases. How would they ever even know that something like this would happen? And besides the point, there's been numerous studies about this vaccine and autism, and the doctor who came out with this later on revealed that it was a lie and that he was paid, and all of this was a fabrication. But it's reached such a point that this fabricated lie has become a truth with people. And my advice is, don't tell someone who just got their child diagnosed with autism, that their child is autistic, that it's their fault because they gave them vaccines. This is just very rude, and it's not helpful, and it's hurtful, and they're already hurting. So the best thing you can do is just support them and be there for them. Then you have another group of people in the family. They might blame the other side and go back and forth on whose fault it is genetically. This also doesn't help. It causes nothing but harm, and it causes a lot of friction and fighting between family members. Who cares where it came from? What matters most is how you're going to deal with it now, and how we can come together and help this child who desperately needs our attention, our support, and our love. There's no time to be bickering and arguing about, it's from your side of the family, not mine. Oh, it's my side of the family, not yours. Oh, your distant cousin had some other mental illness or something, or this person had Down syndrome in your family, or this person might have been autistic. What good is that? What good is that? The child is autistic, and he needs the help. He doesn't need people arguing and fighting. What we need is unity among the family members, all supporting and helping the person who is diagnosed, and also the parents who are having to deal with this directly. Some might even come and say that your child has been diagnosed with this due to some sins you committed, and God is cleansing you from these sins through this action of your child being diagnosed with autism. I mean, how does the person saying this even know if that's the reason or not? And it's only assumption on their part, and it makes it seem as if it's the parents' fault for this, and is being unsympathetic towards someone who is facing this difficult situation. After all, autism isn't some curse from God or some sort of punishment. Rather, it's just a learning developmental disability. And some might not even call it a disability. It's just a different way of thinking. And this doesn't mean that the child is unteachable. Rather, he just simply might not learn according to the conventional methods of education. And instead, he needs an individualized learning plan that works for him. So people with autism think differently than we do, but some cases they're geniuses. So it doesn't help to come and tell someone, your child got diagnosed with autism because you've been sinning and you've been doing corruption, you've been doing something wrong, and God is punishing you for this. Wow. I mean, how can a person, think about it? How can someone even have the audacity to say something with such great magnitude as that? That God is punishing you for your sins and gave your child a disability. I mean, it really baffles me to think that these type of things actually happen. Lastly, apart from all the other types of reactions I mentioned above, beforehand, you'll see that you will have one group of people that does the right thing. All those other things were the wrong things. They were examples of the wrong way to approach this situation. But you'll have one group who comfort you, and they'll tell you that they're there for you and your family in any possible way that they can help. And they encourage you to be the best parents that you can be and love your child even more than before. This type of response that a family needs is what a family needs when they're going through this situation and through this whirlwind of emotions. And the crazy thing about all of it is these people who do this for you, they might not even be your family members. They might be somebody else, some friends, or someone you don't even expect. That's the situation sometimes. So I'm just making these points to tell people, because you're may come in contact with a family member or a friend who has a child with any type of diagnosis of disability or learning disability or what have you. You should just support them and be there for them and let them know that you care about them and that you'll help them with whatever they need. Now let's talk about the help we can give for people with autism. There's different types of help. They have therapies such as we mentioned before about early intervention. They have speech. They have behavioral help, which is ABA. They have occupational therapy, there's tons of different types of therapy. And this is offered for free from the Department of Social Services. So it's not like something you have to come and pay out of your pocket. Once you get that diagnosis from the doctor, the doors are open for you to get all sorts of help. And I think even early intervention, you can get this help even before you get the diagnosis. Yes, this is correct, because I remember we had the same situation. You get early intervention first, and then when you get the diagnosis, your insurance will cover, the Medicaid will cover all of the speech and occupational therapy and ABA therapy, all of these things. You just get it through your coverage. And another thing is everyone who has autism, do they have the same symptoms or levels of severity? The answer is no. They call it a spectrum because it covers a wide variety of things and people differ varying on where they are at on the spectrum. Some may be affected mildly by autism, while others are affected severely. The saying is, if you've met one person with autism, then you've met one person with autism. So it varies. There's a number of factors to put one on the spectrum. For example, let's say there are 10 things. And if you have 10 of these characteristics or qualities, then you're severe on the spectrum. The minimum of the spectrum is to have 2 of them. So you can be anywhere on that spectrum, but if you have 2 or more of these qualities, speech delay, repetitive behavior, there's a lot of things. I can't think of all of them at the moment, but there's a list of characteristics for autism and traits, and if you have 2 or more, then you're on the spectrum. And it just depends how many of those you have on how severe the autism is. Another big important thing is to how to interact with people with autism, because we've been speaking a lot about children, but these children grow up and you have to interact with people, adults who have autism. Autism doesn't have a look. Some people say, oh, your child doesn't look like he's autistic. Okay, there's no look for autism. Autistic people look just like everyone else. It doesn't affect their look, like such as Down syndrome, you can tell. An autistic person, it affects a certain part of their brain that deals with social skills. So you would notice through characteristics, this person is very socially awkward. They might be alone. They might not have eye contact. They might not like touching other people, or they might not mind physical contact. Like I said, it's a spectrum. It's all different. So they might have sensory issues, or it's all types of things. So you don't notice by a look, but you notice by behavior. So we have to interact with these people when they're adults and when they're children. So I was looking at something that an autistic person published, who's an adult, and he writes blogs and things of this nature, and he gave a list of things how to deal with people who had autism. And before we get into that list, I would just like to say a few things about how to keep in mind when we're dealing with other people who have disabilities. Number one is to be caring and to care about the individual for who they are. Don't worry or think about the condition or characteristics or whatever, but to care for that person as another human being as you would care for anybody else. Don't be insensitive. And the second thing is to try to make things sensory friendly, meaning that the lights aren't too bright. The loud noises, there's no really loud noises, as they might be oversensitive to these types of things. And if they are, they'll get a sensory overload, and they won't be able to process things, and they won't be able to focus as well, because the sounds and the smells and the lights, it will be overwhelming for some people. So take these things into consideration when you're dealing with people on the autism spectrum. So the points that the man brought about dealing with people on the autism spectrum was probably because he had to deal with a lot of people and he wished they knew these things. So he brought some points. I think he brought 10 of them, so we're going to go over them. And hopefully this will help us. We can gain some benefit from this. The first one he said was, please always keep in mind that communication difficulties are common with autism. We have difficulties in reading social cues and body language. Be patient and understanding. A lot of people with autism, they don't understand the social cues, or they don't understand sarcasm. They don't understand body language. They are very literal and they understand things as they are. So they might misinterpret something. Like, for example, one saying that we have in America, when you let's say someone is going to go perform or go do something, they say, oh, go break a leg. I don't know where it came from, but it means like go do a good job, like go out there and do really well. But an autistic person would not understand this. They would be like, break a leg? Why would they want to break a leg? Things like this. they don't get these types of phrases. The second thing he said, we tend to take things literally and often have trouble reading between the lines. As a result, we may ask a lot of questions to clarify what is meant by something that you say. I have been told that I ask a lot of questions. Don't be offended by this. It is our way of being sure that we understand what you are telling us. We may repeat back to you in our own words to try to get on the same page as you. So you have to be very patient and make sure they understand. And don't think because you said something that one person, you would expect someone to understand, and you're like, why do I have to explain this to this guy again and again and again, you know? Just because a typical person might understand you right away the first time, this person might not understand you, and you might have to even clarify it even more, which might appear to you as odd. But just know that this person needs help, and you should be considerate and help him get to the same page as you are. Number 3, if we misunderstand something that you say, please be patient and expand on what you said, and explain what you meant. Don't assume a negative or hostile intent from us if we misunderstand something that you said. Keep in mind that communication can be difficult for us. Things that come naturally to you take extra effort by us. So things that we have naturally, because our part of the brain is not affected, the part that deals with social interaction, when their part of their brain, autism affects that part. So they have trouble with social communication skills. So you have to be patient, and they have to learn these things that might come to others as natural. So be patient and help them with this. Number 4, please don't get offended by our communication style. We tend to be frank, honest, and a matter of fact. Some people may interpret this as blunt or rudeness. We don't intend to offend you by not sugarcoating the things we say. We don't intend to be rude. Please don't get defensive or assume that we are attacking you. Remember that communicating is hard for us. Don't make negative assumptions. Too often we get corrected or attacked by someone who fails to give us some slack and the benefit of the doubt. So a lot of people, they don't have sometimes it can come off as very blunt or rude. They have no filter or something like that. But they're just saying what they feel. They're not sugarcoating it or making it polite or, you know, thinking of emotions and other people. They just say it how it is. And sometimes, you know, that can be a bit much for people. He said, don't get offended by this. This is just the way that they communicate. Number 5, please don't expect eye contact. We may be able to force eye contact, but it is not comfortable for us. Making eye contact takes a conscious effort. This effort may take away from listening and understanding what you are saying. I tend to look at a person's mouth more often than their eyes. Other autistic people will rarely look at your face, and this is okay. What he's saying is, if you want him to look you in the eye, he might be able to do it, but it will take so much concentration and focus and stuff for him to look you in the eye, and he'll be so anxious and have anxiety about looking you in the eye that he won't process what you're saying or what you're trying to tell him. So it's better for him to look away and process what you're trying to say than to look you in the eye and have no clue on what's going on. Number 6, please be in mind that we most likely have been rejected, excluded, ridiculed, or bullied in the past. If we seem anxious or insecure, this may be due to living in a world that misunderstands us and is often hostile to us. We have to work hard to reach out to others. Please work at reaching back to us with understanding and kindness. If we feel that you are ignoring us, we will feel bad about that. We may persist in asking you for feedback. Please be reassuring and clearly express your support for us. We have to treat people with kindness and respect for all people, not just our group of people that are our ethnicity or our social class or our whatever, these type of things, our nationality or our belief or our creed. No, you have to be caring to all of mankind and be nice and respectable to everybody. Don't treat people badly because they're different than you. And this is what he's saying. A lot of people bullied them and been rejected, and they were rude to them because they're not the same as the other person. And this is something we have to be conscious not to do, and we should never ignore someone because they have a disability. We should go talk to them, be nice to them, be kind to them, and make them feel wanted, just like we would want to feel. Number 7, please don't speak down to us. Treat us as equals. We may sound flat or have an unusual tone to our voice. We may not speak with our voice at all. We may need to type our words because they're nonverbal. Please be patient with us. It takes us a while to formulate our answers. Number 8, please don't talk too loudly or yell at us. It's very jarring to us. It makes me jump when someone comes up to me and talks too loudly. It's like having someone jump out of the dark and yell boo at me, because it causes an adrenaline dump in my body, and I don't like this. That's what the guy is saying, not to yell at them and not too loud at them. They won't process it, and they'll just become anxious, and they'll have a lot of adrenaline, and they'll become upset and agitated. Number 9, please do not touch us without warning. It will make us jump. We do not like unexpected touches. Number 10, please don't assume that we lack empathy or emotion. We pick up on negative or judgmental attitudes. We know when people look down on us or are hostile to us. We will shut down if you show us a lack of respect. Please keep in mind that we are all different. These issues will vary from person to person. The above tips are written from my perspective as an autistic person. This is just a guide by the author of this blog, or these 10 points, Steve Summers. The next thing I would like to talk about after we discuss this on how to deal with autistic people and how to deal with those on the spectrum, I would like to bring some spiritual advice as well. And I feel like this, having a child that is diagnosed with autism, I feel like everything else in the world, it's a test from God. It's something that is difficult, and that we have to learn how to deal with it and be grateful for everything that we have. It's not some sort of punishment. It's for your sins, as someone else might say. It's just a test, because a lot of things are tests in life, and how will we react to this test? And I pray that He strengthens those, that God strengthens those that are dealing with these issues to persevere through these trying and difficult times. It might seem trying and difficult at one moment, but having a child and spending time with your child is the most rewarding thing that you can ever have. And it's beautiful to see your child grow up and learn different things. And we just have to learn how to help them in a way that they understand, and we have to use new methods of teaching, and the conventional method might not work for them. And I know that God, He can aid and assist our children to overcome any sort of challenges that might be in their way. So I have no doubt about this. So it doesn't faze me that I know that our children who have autism or other disabilities are in His hands and His control, and He can help them, and He can help guide them just as He can help anybody else. There's no difference. And I ask you as a parent to continuously call on God and ask Him to help you, and also do everything that you can in your means to make your child's life the best that he or she could ever imagine. So we should always call and ask God for help. It's very hard and difficult, being a parent of someone on the autism spectrum, because it's just very challenging, and it takes so much effort and so much energy out of your life, and you have to have a lot of patience to deal with the type of behaviors and type of challenges that your child is facing. So ask God for strength, and also do everything that you can to just make your child's life the best it can be. And just always show your child love and care and affection. And this brings to mind some verses and some narrations that I would like to end this talk with. And I pray that this video will help others who listen to it and benefit those who listen to this talk. God says in the Holy Quran in chapter 8, verse 28, "And know that your possessions and your children are a test, and that with God is immense reward." Imam Sadiq, peace be upon him, our sixth Imam in Shia Islam, he says that a believer is reminded of God once every 40 days by either a tragic event of a financial or a physical nature for himself or his children, or a sort of sadness which he does not understand the reason for, and he will be rewarded for this. He also said, if a believer knew what the reward for perseverance in the face of calamities is, he would always wish to be torn to pieces, because he would know how much reward he gets for being patient in dealing with all the hardships and the struggles of life. And with this, I would like to close this talk, and I hope that it benefited people, and I hope that my experiences and my research on this topic would benefit those who listen to it and help us deal with this type of situation by having a better knowledge of it. And please take the time to go out and read books about this subject and other talks and other lectures, and educate ourselves on these types of topics and these types of issues. And with that, thank you for listening to this talk, and please share it with your friends and family. Thank you.